Okay, so the last topic that we want to address this week is all of the discussion that we've had about feeling stuck, getting behind, not being able to find the time to get to the workouts, and looking for ways to kind of fit it in, right? So I'll let you kind of kick off this,
Yeah.
Kendra.
So I can tell you, every one of you, I hear you and I know. And this comes at exactly the right time because we know this is the point when when moms start feeling frustrated. This is exactly. It always happens this time. So we saw it coming. um and sometimes it's like week 3 that you start getting like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. However, let me reassure you, if you're feeling agitated and frustrated, you are actually doing it right. You're doing it right. Because it means that you're pushing yourself forward and coming up against something that you really want to do. But now we have to find the shift of how do you make it happen? Because in comfort, if we just are comfortable with things, we just, don't do the things that we want to do. But if we have a challenge set in front of us that we have to overcome to do the things that we want to do, then we got to break through that barrier. And this is usually when it happens. And so, we're actually just about to write a post about this to post in the group. So you guys are going to see this in a little bit in written form. But, when we become a mother or when we add another child to the family, the shift in our lives is dramatic. And, we can completely turn ourselves over to that idea of being a mother. And sometimes it can feel just like totally overwhelming to try to stay afloat. Um, and what I want to say about this course is that yes, it's a physical body repair course. However, it's also just as important. It's also about helping you create a place for yourself in your role as a mother. So not only is it just working on your physical body, but it's also helping you um, figure out how you fit into the puzzle of being in the role of a mother. And I think, this is something that women spend decades trying to figure out. Where do I fit
Mhm.
in? And oftentimes, sometimes you get to the kids being 15 years old and they're like, I have not done anything that I wanted to do for the last 15 years. And I don't know who I am anymore. And so, as much as this course is a physical practice, it's also a practice in making sure that you are hanging on to yourself and making room for yourself. And that can feel challenging because there are so many expectations, especially right now. Everything is falling on mom.
Mhm.
And it can be really hard to set that aside and say, no, I'm going to do this for myself. But that challenge of putting people's feet to the fire and saying, no, this is what I need to do. I need help with this. This is something that's important to me, is a challenge that can be scary. But through challenge, we create resilience. And
Mhm.
resilience is what creates true strength, right?
Right. I want to
And
just comment on that too. A lot of times what subverts our efforts are people around us who say, but these are the best days of your life. And, don't, the baby will grow up and, this is just a phase, like wait a little while longer and, things are going to be easier. But the problem with that is that they're taking away the agitation that is required for your growth. Don't let them do that. Do not let people around you or even yourself take away this point of agitation, this little, like, you know, the oyster, like the pearl and the oyster come from that agitation. And that is what you have the opportunity to do right now. So don't pass up on this opportunity to take this frustration, to channel it, to get support, to claim, like, wait a second, this is important to me. I want to figure this out. It's important for me. Because when you spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and you've done a little bit of something for yourself and you've connected with your body mentally, physically, energetically, the breath body, right, all of these pieces, you're healing on so many levels and you're growing. You're growing to know yourself, to claim yourself, and really develop yourself as a mother. And so we are here right by your side to stand with you and not allow those dismissive, comments or, the blanket like supportive comments like, oh, don't worry, like, oh, you'll have time, and oh, this is the best time, don't miss, those are taking away the agitation that you need to feel in order to move from this place of stress into a place of growth. So I just want to add that little piece to what you were saying, because I don't want you to miss it. Take this struggle, and it may take weeks, it may take a couple months, it may take a year, one whole year to really kind of figure this out. But I think that kind of gets to the next thing that we wanted to bring up, which is, um, you know, are when there are changes that happen to our brain when we become a mom. So there's a lot of background noise. Is it loud? Can you hear?
Okay, yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Um, when you become a mom, there's this great book. I'm gonna post the picture of it in the Facebook group because I highly recommend it. I won't be able to do it justice, just summarizing it here, giving a few points from it. It's called Newborn Mothers: When a Baby is Born, So is a Mother. It's a wonderful book. It's written by an Australian doula woman, mother who's a doula in Australia. And she explains how our brain changes when we become a mother. And it's almost like she uses analogy, I think, of like a file cabinet. So when you become a mother, it's like you had your file cabinet filled with your life up until birth, and then you have your baby, and suddenly a huge chunk of those files are no longer relevant, and your mind tosses them. You forget them, you lose them, they're gone, it's empty. Your brain becomes a little bit like, putty, like some of your thinking brain, like the baby brain is an actual thing. It's like scientifically proven to, be a thing. But what's happening too is that your capacity for learning is like off, off the charts, like your baby. Like we mirror our baby's growth and learning capacity in the brain. So because of neuroplasticity and all of this stuff, these things which we might perceive as traumatic or stressful in our life are actually growth opportunities, learning opportunities, development opportunities. And you can't fill the file cabinet with new information without going through the process of writing the documents. And how do you do that? You live your life. You experience the struggle. You trial and error. In order to learn what your baby's cries mean, you have to listen to them and you have to interpret them and take some action. And then, it's like trial and error. You're learning as you go. And so when it comes to finding your rhythm and finding your time and finding your rhythm with this work and finding time for yourself and what works and what feels good and how much is enough, um, it's very much trial and error. And I want to habituate you to the fact of trial and error as a way of continual growth, because my children are now 11 and 6, and I am still in like a perpetual phase of learning and growth. I've traveled a long way, but given, of course, this pandemic and all the changes and twists and turns, but I've developed skills so that, suddenly a setback doesn't set me back 3 months. Maybe it sets me back like an hour, you know? So we develop experience through the challenge. And we're able to pick up and move forward with resilience. And that's just what Kendra was talking about. It's that resilience um, that makes us powerful. So and strong. So Kendra, you were sharing a great story about that the TV series.
Yeah,
Do you want to share that with us?
yeah, yeah,
I think it's really poignant and it's just a great example of
yeah.
what we're talking about.
My husband and I have been watching the show called Alone. I don't know if you guys have watched it, but it's a show. It's like it's kind of like a reality show, but they basically take their 10 people, wilderness experts that they take, and they have 10 items they can bring with them. They're all dropped in a location like Vancouver Island, Patagonia, way up in Iceland. They're dropped 5 miles away from each other, and they basically have 10 items, and they have to survive as long as possible in the wilderness. They have to build their own, locate their own shelter, they get their own food, everything. And whoever lasts the longest wins. So there are 7 seasons of the show, and we've watched it's just fascinating. It's so fascinating. Um, we've watched 7 seasons of it, and we kind of bounced around from one season to another. But what we started to notice was that the people who won the whole thing, who lasted the longest, were the ones who were very um, calm and even keeled about issues that came up. So there was one guy, he was like the most nonchalant guy on the whole show in season 6. And sorry if I'm giving this away, spoiler alert. So he killed this moose. He got this moose, and like that is enough to feed you for like months. And so he did all this stuff to like, make sure the wolverines weren't going to get the meat and the fat and everything. And the fat is the most important because the meat doesn't give you enough energy. It's the fat that you need. Look how much I've learned from the show. If I ever get stuck in the wilderness, you want to be with me. No, you don't. So so he went to like great lengths to hide all of this stuff and keep it away from the wolverines. And then, of course, the dramatic episode, dramatic show thing, he goes, and the wolverines have found his stash and they ate all of his fat and half of his meat from a moose. And his reaction to it was, oh man, well, that really stinks. Well, guess I got to do it again. And I was like, what a great attitude to have about it. And so it was, and I just started noticing it in more people, like that person is going to be at the end because they have that, like they have the resilience to come across a challenge and be like, all right, well, that stinks, but I'm going to work through it and I'm going to find a way to make it happen because I really want this at the end. I want to win at the end. And it's always the participants who come in and are like, I'm going to win this. I'm the best, and but then they get faced with a challenge and they're the ones, the big husky guys crying on the floor. I can't take this anymore. I got to leave. I got to go. And then, granted, I know this is hard. It's crazy hard to live on your own. And I don't doubt that for a second. But like after watching 7 seasons of this, you really start to see you know, you start to see kind of character types that
Mhm.
tend to win this
Yeah.
kind of thing. And certainly, if you're going to win a show like Alone, you have to, you know,
Yeah,
there's no other way to do it.
right.
But I think it also, really applies to our own lives because while we're not, chasing wolverines away from our food source, we are having to um, take care of ourselves in a pandemic, in the middle of a pandemic, and, so many stressors around us. This is a challenging time. Not to mention being postpartum in and of itself is a challenging time. Layer on a pandemic, homeschooling other kids, all of these things that are going on, and you've got major challenges right in front of you.
Yeah.
Those challenges can be a garden plot for growth. And that's what I really want to challenge you is to take those challenges that you see for things that you really want. This is also a really good way to see what things you want and what things you don't want. Because if you're not willing to work past that challenge and get that resilience to go after what you're doing, maybe it's not the right goal for you, right? Um, or maybe something has to be shifted. Something has to change a little bit to make it so that you want it so badly that you're willing to work through those challenges and build that resilience for it.
Mm.
Uh, you know, honestly, it's the same for our kids too, because we got to put them through challenges so that they build resilience. If we just take away all the barriers and make things easy, never build resilience, and they'll, it, it, it's not good.
It's like the necessary challenge that we have to work through. And the way you work through it is by trying things. And you won't succeed every time, but progress is motivating because every time you try something you learn something. And that's a kind of a growth mindset approach. It's like I try things so that I can learn things, not I don't try things because I think I will fail. And looking really just at failure as a growth opportunity. So it's getting really loud here.
One
Yeah.
thing I'll mention is about doing the workouts and that from the physical perspective is every little bit counts, and in a challenging situation like this, trying out different things and seeing what works is definitely a way to move through some of that challenge. Like, I'm going to try this and see what happens. And, as we get through this course a little further into it, I really want to encourage you guys to start trying new things and start adding more intensity to your workouts, adding more intensity into, the things that you're doing, and not being afraid to push your boundaries a little bit. And really, what we're teaching you is to find your edge, to know where your edge is, so then you can push it. Because edges are meant to be pushed. We don't just hang out at the edge and like hang out there, that's when we plateau. We want to find the edge and then push that edge within a safe range and keep you safe, but still be able to push that edge. And that's really what this course is all about, is helping you find that edge so then you can push it safely.
Safely, right. Yeah.